What's up, everybody? I'm excited to talk about conversions today. We're going to talk about the 4 biggest expenses you need to know and understand when trying to convert an asset into a storage facility, whether that's retail, office, or anything else. Before we do, we work super hard to provide great content. If you could like, subscribe, share this, that would be amazing. And don't forget to go to the podcast, Self-Storage Income. Please give us a good review, and we have tons and tons of content on self-storage, actionable, usable content that you can go out to acquire storage facilities, build, and grow a business. All right, so let's get started here. Now, this was a hard one for me because I had a lot of things that I wanted to bring into it, and we've done a lot on conversions and we will continue, but I really wanted to limit it down to these 4 big expenses with conversions. So we're going to start with number 1, and that's the roof. Lots of times when dealing with conversions, you're dealing with assets that have been sitting around for a long time. Once again, that may be retail, that may be office, an industrial space. When dealing with roofs, they can be super expensive. We're talking millions of dollars. And we've had to re-roof conversions. We've had to re-roof super Kmarts, and that bill came out to well over $800,000. We have office buildings that we're looking at re-roofing, and that is going to probably go over $1 million. We do this in 2 ways. First thing we do is we find the roof where it needs work, and we stage it over time. We try to re-roof and do the whole thing all over again when we refinance the facility that we've now converted. With the bank, we take that money and do it all. But if you can get away, lots of times you can get away for years and segment out every single year portions of the roof to do. I have not seen a conversion yet where the roof did not need some kind of work done to it. If you're lucky, it'll be in good condition and you may need to do just a little patchwork. When looking at buying your facility, or not your facility, your soon-to-be facility, but when looking at buying buildings, make sure you bring out roofers. And that can be a great tactic for you to negotiate on the purchase price. If you need to re-roof the whole thing and the cost is going to be $1 million and you're acquiring a building for $3 million, that's a great negotiation tool. And also, you don't want to get surprised with that later on. So make sure you have a roof inspection done right off the bat. Right out of the get-go, get somebody up on that roof. Number 2, demo. We bought a large office building. The demo in it is going to be extremely expensive. You have lots of things going on in these buildings, and this may be walls that need to come out. And the reason why this can get expensive is because of how the storage facility will flow. In one, we built drive-through aisles where people actually went through and they drove through, and we had to demo walls to get into the storage and have access to. The other one, we did outside parking where they're coming into, and we had to remove the insides. Now, depending on the asset, depending on the location, and how much work needs to be done, this can really add up. And 2, there may be asbestos. There may be other problems in. Then you have to decide whether you're going to mitigate that or you're going to just ignore it. And by ignore it, I don't mean ignore it. I mean lock it up and separate that off. That happened to us. We had a bathroom that had asbestos in it. The rest of the building did not. We literally just locked it up and shut the door and are not going to use that. And so we don't demo it. So it's just fine. But these prices can fluctuate and you really don't have a good idea until you get somebody in there to tell you the cost, but it will be a major cost when building into a storage facility. Number 3, access. And access, exit, this can be everything to the actual facility, driving around it, parking. I'm including fences, gates. Gates are expensive. They're going to run you over $30,000 a pop. The more access points you have on a building, the more expensive that will be. We had a building where we had over 8 access points into the building, outside the building. So on this building, we had a drive aisle. We needed entry and exit ways, also doors where people could park on the sides of the buildings to get access to. This makes for a lot of locks. It makes for a lot of systems, cameras, and it makes for a lot of moving parts. The more access points you have, the more expensive that is going to be. When dealing with gates and entries, you need to look at the flow. Are they going to go around the building? Are they going to go through or in the building? And what do you need to allow them to have access? What time? Is it a 24-hour facility? How large is it? Where are you putting the office? Access and exits into the building are a very large component of storage. People are moving. They're bringing a lot of stuff in. You're going to have trucks and semis utilizing that building. This is something you need to figure out and really plot out well. because this is something that could be a variable that will depend on the local government and how, depending on traffic count, access from roads, residential, they're going to dictate what you can and can't do. So make sure you understand and try to limit access points without limiting the ability for a customer to get to a unit. We like to do this in a centralized access point to get into it. So when I mean that, I mean car access versus people access. If we could have a one car access providing one gate that equals to be the access and the exit, that's just one area we have to focus on and worry about. Then we can worry about the access into the buildings and how many of those we need around the buildings. Cameras need to be associated with that, and you need to make sure the flow is good. When I say flow, if you have 2 people moving into the storage facility or 3 or 4 people moving into the storage facility, do they all have to go into one place, one door, or can that facility be accessed by multiple people from multiple angles? These are really important when you're dealing in urban environments. So when looking at how people are utilizing your storage, how it's going to work with the main roadway, your gates, your man doors, all of this needs to be taken in consideration. You know, this is kind of the cart before the horse scenario, because lots of times when you're looking at doing a conversion, you can have an idea, but that may change based upon what the city wants you to do. They may have certain regulations and access points. You may need to change it. That means you're going to have to build it out, right? You have cement, asphalt, all those things come into play when doing a conversion, especially in an urban environment. Those costs can really add up and get expensive. Now, for the last one I'm going to mention, it's a really expensive one, is the HVAC. Lots of time, the heating, air conditioning, and cooling needs to be completely replaced. In fact, in a lot of these old buildings, the pipes that are being used to do the heating, your gas pipes, they're not even used anymore, as in the government doesn't recognize them and they have to be updated. That's really expensive. This happened to us. They use too large of pipes that the HVAC systems don't take anymore and they don't install, so they're outdated, which means when we replaced the HVACs, we had to replace the pipes. Once again, that was a cost we didn't know we would incur. So now we know. We need to check the pipes, the gas pipes, and see, first of all, where the gas pipes are going and how many we need. The install cost is based on linear foot. These buildings can be large, and you can have a lot of gas pipes running all over the place. When you look at the HVAC, you probably don't need to cool it and heat it as much as you did when it was an office or a retail space. So a lot of those pipes don't need to be used along with those HVACs. So how can you get limited HVACs to accomplish your goal and stay within that temperature range and cut off the rest of the gas pipes? And do you need to replace those gas pipes to accomplish this? It can be a really, really large expense. When going into it, make sure that you have people come test your pipes. Make sure your pipes are working and don't have leaks. Also another problem we had. They had leaks, so we had to replace them. These were things that we learned after the fact, and we learned them so you don't have to. So check your pipes, because you don't need to know that to get your permits. Surprise, surprise. I didn't know that, but you didn't need to know that, so we didn't have anybody test it. The city didn't make us, and the bank didn't make us, and all of a sudden, we started smelling natural gas in our building. We replaced the HVACs. We had to replace all of the piping, and it adds up. Test it before and test the lifespan of your HVACs, because if sometimes they have added as they go. So you can utilize the newer HVACs, get rid of the old ones, and then make sure you have a service agreement set up with those large HVAC systems so that they don't fail on you. Replacing them is a very, very big cost. All right, so those are my top 4 for now. There's lots of large expenses when looking at conversions, and it depends on where it's located, the type of building, the usage before, and they can vary widely. But these are 4 ones that we find can really get away from you that you didn't plan on. And when doing conversions, you don't want surprises. So make sure you get the right people out there to find out what needs to be done and the cost associated with that, so you don't have a surprise and your investors don't have a surprise. Hope this helps. Thanks, everybody.